Okay, here's our final set of this presentation. This is a pilot project that we did in Martha's Vineyard. What I loved about this, we did this back in 2023 with an amazing organization, Center for Ecotechnology. If deconstruction can work financially in Martha's Vineyard, it can work around the country. Martha's Vineyard, as many of you know, there's the materials first have to get back to mainland Cape Cod, then they need to be brought inland to Massachusetts where they can be reused. So there's a lot of logistics to make this happen. So this was done with Martha's Vineyard Vision Fellowship, South Mountain Company, an incredible organization, the power team of Anne and Liz at Waste Not Recycling Works, Carol's Trucking, CET, which I already mentioned, and then us. So what we were able to accomplish in this is that over 10 tons of materials were diverted from the waste stream. There was a recycling rate of 59%, and the FMV, or the fair market value of the reclaimed materials, even with all the extra cost of the logistics, it paid for more than 3/4 of the costs associated with this effort. So the donor was incredibly environmentally minded, and she went into this knowing that it dollar for dollar might not work out for her, and she was okay with this being going over the cost of traditional demolition. But a lot of our clients in other parts of the country are able to do this and have the tax deduction bridge that gap and sometimes get them ahead with the donation of these materials. And that's where the appraisals are so important to substantiate that value delta. And this is something that happened to us once with another nonprofit and appraisers, and really is what is critical that we watch for. So a random CPA reached out to me after doing some Google searches, and she found that a nonprofit and the appraisal that was produced were deficient. It was 2 pages long, and it didn't have, there was a whole checklist. It was missing about 90 to 95% of everything that needed to be in there. Yes, it was 5-page report, sorry, not 3. So the CPA recognized it as deficient because she had a tax background and she knew valuations don't look like this, and they had us re-engage. So our appraisal report ended up being over about 100 pages, and the FMV, once it was all line itemed, was 20 grand less. And it took, in staff hours, about 4 weeks to do this. And really the report that was produced by that nonprofit and appraiser might have taken 4 minutes. Making it more problematic was that the appraiser couldn't be reached. This was during tax season too, so that's kind of a weird sign that you're gone during tax season. But the nonprofit had dictated to the appraiser what values to enter and had touched the 8283 in the client portion, which is the portion that the IRS says is not what the CPA or the appraiser is supposed to do. This is supposed to be the client CPA. But the nonprofit, and then furthermore, the nonprofit and the appraiser actually never gave the client the appraisal. So they just gave them a number and this 8283 with no actual appraisal. So it took us a week or two just to find this appraiser and get this 5-page disaster. And then we found out that they had been told, the client had been told, that you don't even need the actual appraisal unless it's worth more than 500,000. That's false. If the aggregate value for this kind of donation is more than 500,000, you have to actually attach the appraisal to the tax return. There's nothing about not needing an appraisal. So they had paid whatever they paid, $1,000, $2,000 for this appraisal, and got nothing but a signed 8283 that was done by the nonprofit. This is called a captive appraiser. The nonprofit and the appraiser are completely separate. They are independent for a reason. My CPA clients, I can't do appraisals for because I'm not independent. That independence is critical. To make this even more confounding, the nonprofit refused to sign the 8283 with our appraisal value on it and said they must go with that nonprofit's chosen appraiser. So many issues there, but this is what we see real world in this market. So like I said in a prior segment, the rest of the industry of appraisers and some nonprofits were not thrilled when we opened up in 2019 and started rigorously digging into this work. This is part of why, but it's what must be done. If we want to protect this tax deduction as a way to get to deconstruction, these need to be compliant. So nonprofits have to be 100% independent. You can pay a commission to for-profit entities if they refer appraisal clients, and especially sometimes we do this if there's documentation or they do a field inspection for us in lieu of us sending someone. But these appraisals take a lot of hard work. Shortcuts only hurt the client, the donor. They are the ones holding the bag, and they are the ones who will pay excessive misstatement fees with the IRS. They can have the rest of their return pulled under audit. The appraiser and the nonprofit are independent entities. It is our client we have to look out for. These strange practices that I went through back here, those don't help anyone except for that nonprofit and the appraiser to make more money, leaving the client holding the bag. But thankfully that CPA found us, and that's why I'm doing things like this to bring awareness to how this needs to be done. We've also been brought in to help a lot of clients who have been audited because the appraisals have been disallowed. And unfortunately, a lot of times because this falls under DEFRA compliance, there's not a lot that can be done. We can't do a prospective appraisal. You get one shot to hire a qualified appraiser who produces a qualified appraisal in that filing window, including extension times. CV needs to include the college education, the qualifications that make this person able to do these appraisals. They're also disallowed sometimes when they're not detailed enough. I already talked about missing the Form 8283 cost basis box in other segments of this presentation, wrong valuation methodology, and then that real estate versus personal property. That was in a prior segment, but we are valuing personal property. Detached real property becomes personal property and must be valued as such. That is established under the detachment principle. Like I said earlier, that's been established since the early 1900s. So there are organizations who fight tooth and nail and claim that the home being donated is actually worth $1.5 million in real property value. That should be the tax deduction. IRS disagrees. So does accounting theory and the fundamentals of the detachment principle. It might be worth 250, maybe it's worth 300 and is a gorgeous deconstructed structure, but the pieces are typically never equal to the whole. And we've covered this in other segments, but the 8283 needs to be correct on the first go round. And in the enormity of the Internal Revenue Code, this is one of the most impactful environmental initiatives that was never meant to be an environmental initiative. It is a tax deduction for non-cash property that has brought in this incredible industry with some of the best and the brightest that are working so hard to bring deconstruction to the foreground and make this the first option for property owners. We're on the valuation side. We work closely consulting with others. In my dream world, we will be able to get rid of the tax deduction if needed because people will be able to harvest the materials, sell them themselves. We'll have more people participating in a functional secondary market. That's why we opened our new company, GM-ESG. And there's more information on that. And here's some articles. And again, if you can't sleep tonight, we have over 100 or so articles on our website that go into this in detail.